I enjoy thrillers, and when you toss in drama and even some sci-fi, I can really enjoy them, when they're done well. Netflix brought the film Elizabeth Harvest to its platform. Now, it's not a new film, it's from 2018, but I'd never heard of it, so I decided to watch. Should you? A brilliant and rich man brings his new wife home and shows her every room in his mansion, except for one that she is forbidden to enter. So of course she's going to go into it, and that's when consequences happen. This film has a pretty small cast. It stars Ciarán Hinds, Abbey Lee, Carla Gugino, Matthew Beard, and Dylan Baker. They work well together to create the tension and unease that is present through most of the film. The setting and set design really mess with time in this. The opening scene feels like it's right out of a 1960s movie. And this includes other portions of the film too, like clothing, features of the house, even shot choices. There are several scenes where they employ a split screen, which really feels like an old-time thriller. Except for when they use a shaky cam, and then that pulls you totally out of that feeling of like the 1960s. Luckily, they barely use the shaky cam, which I appreciate because it just didn't fit with everything else that they were doing. It was like almost an afterthought or maybe a reshoot. I don't know exactly what it was, but that part of it just felt odd. But going along with messing with time, I mean, there are also portions of the film that feel like they come out of the late 70s or early 80s, and then to confuse matters even more, there are iPhones. This whole conglomeration of time periods is used to create a time out of space, which then just further adds to a sense of unease. We're no longer grounded in a time continuum. I don't think this movie is wholly original. There are parts that are really going to remind you of some excellent sci-fi movies that we have gotten in recent years. It even reminds me of something that I saw on Hulu as part of their Into the Dark anthology. Even though it shares ideas and the feels of some other movies, it does a good job of keeping us off balance with the story and in the way that it's presented. One thing that I found odd, but I ended up ultimately liking it, was they had a climax towards the beginning of the film, probably within the first 35 minutes. From there, the narrative shifts to give us a different perspective on the story. And the first part isn't nearly as surprising as the second half. And that's not to say, though, that the second climax is groundbreaking, because it's not. But I did find myself enjoying the story more and more as it progressed. The film uses a lot of symmetry in its shots, which is really pleasing to watch. I mean, we have characters that are centered in the frame as they're either walking down hallways or walking towards us or just sitting there staring, almost looking into our souls. I like the air of mystery that is produced from some of the characters in their side glances or lurking in the shadows. I mean, who knows what's really going on and who is the one that is trying to find out? There are many scenes that are dominated by an overlay of color. I mean, sometimes it's blue, sometimes it's red, other times it's green or yellow. Everything in that scene is colored, and what that does is just really help employ an emotion. Now, not every scene is colored a solid color, but when it does, it's effective and it looks kind of cool. There are some parts that I felt were pretty obvious, but luckily those happened towards the beginning of the film, so there wasn't really any tension that was ruined by the reveal or by finding out. And even more so, even when I did find out a little bit that, or I was able to guess it, or it was just a tiny bit obvious, it was still more in the thrills of this than in any type of mystery. It's an hour and 45 minutes long, and at times it did feel long. I think that's because the story shifts perspectives a couple of times, and when they shift, it feels like the film is ending, and then it continues. Throughout this, the tone and the story are pretty dark, even though we have some characters who are trying to romanticize it. I really like the awkward pauses and stutters that Abbey Lee brings to her character of Elizabeth. She sells the character really well and makes her both sympathetic and frustrating. And each of the characters are great in this in their own right, but when you put them together, they really help to add to the anxiety and the thrills. Ultimately, the unease that the story creates makes this a fun watch. And when you couple in the tension from the darkness, it's pretty satisfying. It's far from perfect, but it's still enjoyable. There is sex, nudity, profanity, and some brutal violence. I give Elizabeth Harvest 3 out of 5 couches. So are there any good sci-fis that you've been watching recently? One that you can recommend in the comments below? I'd love to hear it. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for catching it.